Namaste everyone. We will start the session in few minutes. Before starting the talk session, I would request everyone to maintain the decorum of the event and please feel free to send in your questions in the chat section and I will be back to moderate the question towards the end. I repeat, please send your questions through chat section and we will get to as many as questions possible if time permits. Thank you.
Namaskar, Sikhil ji.
Namaste ji, it's such a pleasure to see you here. Lovely to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm very fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very fine. And how are you?
Managing somewhat. Yeah,
in COVID times.
Yes, coping up.
Very nice.
Namaskar. SpeakMake Surat heartily welcomes to all on Suvaditra, a talk on the science and multilingualism of Carnatic music. SpeakMake, Society for the Promotion of Indian Classical Music and Culture amongst Youth. It is a non-political, nationwide youth voluntary movement that promotes cultural education, organization programs of classical music and dance, folk, art, yoga, cinema music, heritage, etc. in schools and college all over the world, and to make the students aware about the Indian and world heritage. Here, we extremely honored to inform you that the founder of this movement is present among us today. Dr. Kiran Sheth was awarded the Padma Shri for his contribution to the art in 2009. Sir, we would be highly obliged if you could please address the young listener and generation. Share your views with us. Dr. Kiran, sir.
Okay. So, first of all, I'm very happy to be here with you all. Of course, virtually. I have been there once physically. That was wonderful to be there at your campus. It's a beautiful campus. And initially, I'd like to do my namaskar to Sikhil Gurucharanji, who is, as you know, a wonderful Carnatic musician. He's from a family tradition. You know, the two Sikhil sisters were wonderful flute players and lovely tradition of Carnatic music. And I thank you for coming today, and I also welcome you on behalf of all of us. I'm here to talk to you because of course, SVNIT, which has given a wonderful contribution for many, many, many years to SpeakMake. But most recently, there are 4 R's. I call them the 4 R's. Radhika, Rashi, Rashmi, and Rohtash. There are 4 R's who are like your gems. It's very difficult to find young people who are so committed as these 4 young people who are doing a wonderful job. I'm sure there are many others. Please don't mind because I don't know everybody, but I know these, as I said, 4 R's. What I'm requesting all of you is that while you are doing engineering or you're doing physics or maths or whatever at SVNIT, always do remember that if you want to get some balance, and if you also want to do much better in your studies, if you associate yourself with one of these classical forms like classical dance or classical music, be it Carnatic, be it Hindustani, be it Bharatnatyam, be it Kathak, be it whatever, you will find that you will do very well in your academics. I'm not saying something original, like, you know, some of the greatest physicists and greatest mathematicians of the world have been associated with classical music. As you know, Einstein used to play the classical violin. Raja Ramanna used to play the classical piano. Our former president, Abdul Kalam ji used to play the classical veena. And C.V. Raman did a lot of research on the Carnatic veena. Most recently, Professor Manjul Bhargav, who is the one of the greatest mathematicians alive, he's got the Fields Medal, which is the highest award in maths. There is no Nobel Prize in maths, but he's got the Fields Medal. He's in Princeton University. He's a great number theorist. If you go to his website, he says that, you know, when I get stuck in number theory, I go to my classical music. And when I get stuck in my classical music, I go to my number theory. So what I'm just trying to point out to you all is that if you do get associated with these forms, you will find it'll benefit you immensely in your studies. I'll end off here. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of speaking to you. Many of you should think of volunteering for SPICMACAY. Give a little bit of your time, and I think you will benefit, and so will the movement. Bye, and all the best. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much for sharing your views, sir. It is our very pleasurable thing. Thank you, sir. Now, Sri Sikil Gurucharan ji, it is our great pleasure to have an eminent artist like you with us today. Sikil Gurucharan ji is among the foremost young performing musician of Carnatic music in India today. He is an A-grade All India radio artist, and he is the grandson of Sikil Kunjumani ji and the elder of internationally acclaimed flautist, the Sikil sisters. His music, which has gathered followers not only in India, but also Singapore, Australia, USA, and Europe in a short span of time, presents and preserves the classical music in a way that reaches out to younger listener of music, and at the same time, the Puritans who look out for the aesthetic values. Here, some awards and recognition includes about Sikil Gurucharan ji. Yuva Kala Bharati in 2005, Ustad Bismillah Khan Yuva Puruskar in 2007, Yagyaraman Award of Excellence by Shri Krishna Ganasabha in 2010, Nedunuri Krishnamurti Puruskar by Vishakha Music Academy in 2011, and many more. One of his albums has been selected for Grammy Awards. So congratulations, sir. And his soulful music is really blessing to us. Now, I feel honored to introduce Miss Kinjal Gajera, the director of Gajera Trust. The Gajera Trust supported very well to us during this event. So I request Miss Kinjal Gajera to say a few words. Please, ma'am.
Namaste. Good evening, everyone. Professor Kiran Sethi, it is an honor to connect with you on this platform, and SPICMACAY is a wonderful initiative that you have taken. Sikil Gurucharan ji, it's also an honor to hear your thoughts on music and how it is helpful for the young minds. So I look forward to it. We have been associated with SPICMACAY since 5 years now, and I think it's an amazing platform for young minds to get exposed to our culture, our tradition, and all the forms of music that exist in our fantastic country and incredible India. हमने बहुत सारे इवेंट्स हमारे स्कूल में किए हैं, और हर बार जो भी आर्टिस्ट आते हैं वो बच्चों को एक बहुत ही डिफरेंट वे में इंस्पायर करके जाते हैं. सो आई थिंक इट्स अ वंडरफुल इनिशिएटिव, and we would love to support you in the future, and would love to join all the events to come in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing your views, ma'am. It is all about this evening's talk session and Sikil Gurucharan ji. We sincerely hope that you all will enjoy the talk and imbibe knowledge from his experience. Now, I would request to Sri Sikhil Gurucharanji to take over. Over to you, sir. Please.
Thank you everyone. Asato ma saggamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya asatoma sadgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. With that little prayer of asking the Almighty to take all of us from darkness to light, I would like to start today's talk and a little demonstration on the multilingualism and the scientific principles behind Carnatic music. Before I begin, I would like to thank Speak Meke Surat chapter for inviting me, and also it's such a pleasure to meet Dr. Kiran Sethji virtually here. I've been a huge admirer of all that he has been doing to preserve Indian music and Indian culture, especially in today's world where it is severely challenged by the modern techniques threatening to take over most of the cultural aspects of our country. So thank you, Kiran Sethji, for taking time off to be here. It's always a pleasure to be part of Speak Meke's activities. In fact, this year, owing to the pandemic, is probably the first of the last 5 years where I haven't had this opportunity to get out of my house and see the country, I would say, because every year, thanks to my dear friends in Speak Meke, I get this opportunity to visit a place in India where I haven't been there before, to perform concerts, to enlighten not only the students and enlighten myself about that place, about the kind of Carnatic music that needs to be spread among these young minds. So this year, of course, because of this pandemic, we've not been able to move out that much. So I sincerely hope that the world gets safer very soon, so that all of us can connect physically and directly very soon. Also, another major, I would say, takeaway for me by performing activities for Speak Meke, by giving concerts and lecture demonstrations, is that I get to connect with the young India, so to speak. And if I'm performing outside India for Speak Meke, the young minds, they are, in my opinion, the audience that we need to nurture and preserve for at least for the next 50-60 years, because after that they will hand over the mantle to their next generation, and thus a seamless transition of Carnatic music is ensured because of the activities of Speak Meke, and I'm really happy to be a very small part of that. That reminds me, the young minds that I'm speaking to today, please make sure you ask your questions, because without a why, there won't be a very healthy argument, and there won't be a prospect for development. So upon the request of the volunteers at Surat in Speak Meke, I've devised this talk as such. The first half an hour is going to be my lecture on the topic that I just mentioned, and then I'd love to answer the questions that you as audience have about Carnatic music and about anything in general about Indian classical music. So let's start with a hypothetical situation, okay? Just consider that you know of a person who is well known, who's very famous in different parts of the world, but you actually haven't got a chance to connect with that person, with what that person does, what kind of activities that person is famous for, and what exactly is he doing, he or she. So you are observing that person from a very distance, or from quite a distance, and that person is available on social networks, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but you don't feel that connect with that person. You always feel a little distant from whatever that person is doing. You are carrying on your activities, and that person is doing what he does best, and occasionally you get to hear about the person. Now, what if that person actually came to your place, or you went somewhere to a place where that person is also present, and this hypothetical person makes the effort to come down, talk to you, to mingle with you, and also as a manner of breaking the ice, supposing he or she says something like "Kemcho" or "Namaste." You think that the person is from Korean or Spanish or some background, but he or she comes and talks to you in your own language and says "Vanakkam, eppadi irkeenga," "Dhanyavad, kaise hain aap?" So something like that will immediately make your heads turn, and you will now pay more attention to what that person is known for, what he's trying to communicate, what he's trying to actually connect yourself with. So that is what Carnatic music is. Consider that person as Carnatic music. So what all that goes within Carnatic music goes into Carnatic music. For that to be communicated with different people of different background and different languages, I think multilingualism through Carnatic music is a major factor with which we can ensure that this music is spread to different parts of the youth in this country. You actually feel endeared to an art form, like you feel endeared to a person, when you actually feel that connection, that heart-to-heart connection with him. So that happens when the barrier of language first is broken. But from a broader perspective, if you ask me if music has any language, I would say no, because music itself is a language marked by its own special grammar and literature. But language is a very efficient gateway through which you can enter this wonderful mansion, wonderful palace called Carnatic music. So once you're into this palace, you can start enjoying the beauty of the palace, the lawns, the wonderful birds that are inside the lawn, and the structural beauty, the architectural marvel that is inside the palace. So, but you need a gateway, you need an entrance into that palace, and that entrance is what I think language is. So in this first half of my lecture, I would like to talk about how multilingualism has actually enabled me to connect with a lot more people through Carnatic music. The fundamental principle of Carnatic music, as many of you may be aware of, this is common not only to Carnatic music but also Indian classical music, is the twin concept of melody and rhythm, raga and tala. So that as such has no language in it. But the language is the medium through which the raga and tala can get carried over to different audiences at different points of time. And Carnatic music is actually that binding factor between melody and rhythm. It is that mortar which kind of cements the relationship between melody and rhythm. And it actually balances raga and tala in such a delicate way, in such a strong way, that such a balance, if it has to reach younger minds, I think multilingualism within Carnatic music will help a great deal. Let me share a few examples from my own experiences with Spikmeke, outside of Spikmeke, and tell you how multilingualism has enabled me to give my ideas in a better way to young minds. I think in 2018, when I got this opportunity to visit Sahyadri near Pune, Maharashtra, on the way from Bombay to Pune, I was traveling with some of my friends from Bombay who speak fluent Marathi. And I usually make it a point to understand the local language at least a little bit, even when I went to Seoul sometime back in 2011 and 12. It was very nice to at least learn the pleasantries that are being exchanged by the local people in the local language, be it even in places in Europe and different parts of Asia as well. So there is this little interest in languages. So when I asked this person to give me certain famous proverbs in Marathi, because I think young students can easily connect with two things. One is language, and the other thing is these proverbs that they grow up listening. Something that is very common to the local culture over there, because food and music, of course, they have no language, but it's necessary for you to kind of get that connection with the audience through the prism of proverbs, through the prism of famous local dialects and things like that. So this person immediately refers to some of his books and some of his other friends and comes up with a very famous Marathi proverb called, it goes like, Padile Valana Indriya Sakal. So this is the proverb that he said. And I kind of wrapped my mind around that proverb 3-4 times, and I didn't know how it was going to pan out in the concert that evening in that school. But when the students heard me sing an unknown ragam, Shanmuga Priya, which is very quintessential to South India, I can't expect people in North India or even Maharashtra students in Maharashtra to be aware of a ragam of Shanmuga Priya unless they are aware of Carnatic music. But after the Shanmuga Priya, they were during the raga, understandably so, the students were getting a little restless. You know, they didn't know what was going on, because raga, I'll come to that part later. And then when it moved from Shanmuga Priya Raga Alapana, which is nothing but an abstraction of the rag that you have, when it moved from there to suddenly Padile Valani Indriya Sakala, all on me and my team. You know, their eyes, their ears, their entire attention was on the stage and what was happening on stage. Because he was a guy from South India singing something that I can understand, you know, something that I can relate to. And how did he know this Marathi proverb? And how is it a part of Carnatic music? And the entire understanding of Carnatic music for them changes. To give you a very short demonstration of what I did was something like this. Shanmuga Priya as a ragam is for the people who want to understand Carnatic music. As a ragam, Shanmuga Priya is like this. Sari ga ma pada ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa padile valan indriya sagala padile valan indriya sagala padile valan. And this was a line that I just chose for the students, and I went on doing my own Carnatic stuff within this line. Padile valan indriya sagala padile valan indriya sagala padile valan. Kama badani dani da bani da ba padile valan ni dani da ba ma padile valan padile valan indriya sagala. So the basic meaning of this proverb is that any habit inculcated from childhood will remain forever. Such a wonderful meaning that, and this is a proverb that is common in every language. In Tamil, we say, if you, at the age of 6, if you don't plant an idea, you can't plant it when the person is 60 years old. So this is a very common proverb. The language differs, but why not make music that universal force which takes language also to a different set of people? So this is just one example, and that actually prompted me to use one Marathi proverb every concert during the Speak Make tour. And once when I went to, again, in another, when I narrated this incident to a different set of young minds in a workshop, again in Pune, 1 year later, there was this young group from Kerala who said that, so does it mean that I can use my dialect, my language to sing Carnatic music? And I said, absolutely you can. So the main principle is that you don't mess with the ragam, you don't mess with the talam, and you don't mess with the language that you're singing. So you sing whatever language you're comfortable with, and I will say whether the raga and tala are intact. And much to my surprise, they came up with this wonderful Pallavi in Malayalam. It was raining outside. So this is how I'm so happy to see Carnatic music working in the minds of young people. It was raining outside during the workshop, and these children, these people from Kerala, they came up with this beautiful line and said, "Sir, can you just sing it and show?" The line was, "Vellam kudichu daham poi ini enna venam." So it's actually a very simple meaning. I felt thirsty, I drank water, what else do I need? But that was the literal meaning that these people gave. And one of them said that there is a deeper meaning, saying that we were thirsty for knowledge, you have given us knowledge, what else do we want? We have to take it forward. And I felt really happy, and I said that this is how Carnatic music probably has to move forward, by taking these local languages and infusing them with Carnatic principle, the grammar of Carnatic music, and thereby making the wonderful art form of Carnatic music visible and audible to everyone in this world. So there goes the Malayalam Pallavi that I was able to sing. And after that, it was purely a matter of give and take. I used to give these tunes to my friends in who were fluent in Gujarati, who were fluent in Marathi and Bengali, and they used to give me these lyrics saying that this is from Rabindra Shangi, this is from Tukaram Abhangs, and this is from Kabir Ke Dohe, and why don't you try and sing all these things? So I was really happy, and that is probably the moment where I realized that, you know, Carnatic music, although it doesn't have any language per se, it needs so many languages to flourish in different parts of India and different parts of the world. So once you capture the attention of the audience, and specifically the young minds that I'm speaking to, once you capture the attention by giving them something that they know already, after that it's just something that they are exposed to completely. It's like you give a man a dish, he'll eat one day, but make him learn how to cook, and he eats for the rest of his life. So it's something like that. You just make this form available to a young mind using the language that he or she is familiar with, and then you just have to wait for them to come into Carnatic music and enjoy whatever this has to offer. And to just give you a few more examples of the kind of multilingualism that I have experimented with, and I've also seen people do in today's Carnatic music world. See, the basic languages that we find in a Carnatic music concert today are Sanskrit, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, with little bits of Malayalam here and there, thanks to a very famous South Indian Travancore composer called Swathi. But beyond these 5 languages, what I'm increasingly seeing today, for example, I have dabbled with Marathi as a main piece, or as a Pallavi, which is similar to the khayal that is common in Carnatic, in Hindustani music. And then Gujarati, a few phrases, if I'm not wrong. I think Vaishnava Janato was one of the songs I was repeatedly asked to sing, and Abhangs by Tukaram, and Kabir Ke Dohe. Kabir Ke Dohe, actually, they more than my helping the students with such literature, I think the literature helped me to connect with the students. You know, this was sometime in 2015 or 16. Again, a Spikmake tour in Uttarakhand. I just had 45 minutes for that school in the morning. The moment I started a ragam, again they were like a little hazy because it's morning time and they were not really attentive enough. But then when the Doha began, which was like, I forgot the Doha what I sang. Aisi vani boliye, man ka apa khole, aisi vani boliye. Aisi vani boliye, man ka apa khole. So this is a doha that I have learnt in school, and I've not used it for many years. And this search, or this pursuit of multilinguistic interpretations of Carnatic music actually led me to these old works that I'm already familiar with. And I was wondering why am I not singing this in music concerts? And with the right kind of audience, I started singing Kabir Ke Dohe. I sang this, and I sang another doha, which was in the ragam Kalyani or Yaman in North Indian classical music. I forgot that. Mali Seen Che Sogada, Rutu Aaye, the Dhire Dhire Re Mana. Dhire Dhire Re Mana is one of the doha that I frequently sing in some concerts. And there is also a very famous, but unfortunately not famous right now. It's an ancient language called Saurashtram, which is a mixture of Kannada, Telugu, and Tamil, and Marathi, which was prevalent in the times of the Maratha kings when they were stationed in South India. This language, nobody even thought that Carnatic music existed within this language, but one of the most important disciples of Tyagaraja, who is again a very father figure of Carnatic music in South India, one of his most prominent disciples was a man of Saurashtra origin, and he has composed a lot of Saurashtra kritis that I kind of chanced upon, and I was very happy to sing those in my concerts as well. But you may ask a question of why were there languages outside of these 5 famous languages in those days? As I said, yes, in Saurashtra the songs were composed during Tyagaraja's time, 17th and 18th century. But can you believe that there was a song in English that was composed by this composer called Karur Shivaramayya, who was patronized by Shahaji II, the famous ruler in the Tanjavur kingdom. So this king, the Emperor Shahaji II, was very well known for his patronization of arts and culture, and he used to encourage a lot of musicians and poets from different parts of the state, different parts of the country, to come and prove their talents, to showcase their skills. And this particular composer, Karur Shivaramayya, when he expressed the desire to compose something in English, because at that time the British were already showing signs of entering, the East India Company was already there, and English was slowly creeping into the kingdoms as well. And the Raja was so happy that he actually is said to have encouraged Shivaramayya to compose 2 songs which had both English lyrics and Telugu lyrics, because this is a form of composition called Javali, which is used mostly in the dance repertoire, dance recitals of South India. And most of the songs for this Javali, for this dance recital, is composed either in Tamil or Telugu or Sanskrit. And this composer, Karur Shivaramayya, probably one bright day he had this bright idea: why can't I mix 2 languages, Telugu and English, and see how it is to see. Study in the historical texts, but after that it kind of lost in the passage of time. And now, although there are people dancing to it, I think it's the responsibility of musicians like myself and the younger generation to kind of bring these forms of music that speak different languages into the limelight. So I'll just give you a little example of how this Javali, how this song goes. It may be a little funny at first when you listen to this, but it has a very deep and profound significance in the world of Carnatic music, according to me. So this is a Javali in 2 languages, Telugu and English. Some of you may know, some of you might not know, Javalis are part of the romantic repertoire in Carnatic music. So most of these texts are romantic in nature. It's about a man and woman, they have these romantic tiffs, and the woman complains to her friend that the man has left me and gone. He's not paying attention to me nowadays. And this particular Javali, it's the man who actually, after a fight with his lover, he's trying to reconcile by saying sweet things to the woman, saying that how beautiful you are. So the Javali goes in the Ragam Karahara Priya. Again, the Ragam is such a classically known, a very quintessential South Indian Ragam, but the text is colonial, and it's also Telugu. Okay, it has a mixture of colonial and the deep-rooted traditional language as well. Sariga mapadani sa sa nida pa magare sa Karahara Priya. Oh my lovely Lalana, Yelane Pomanti. Oh my lovely Lalana, Yelane Pomanti. Oh my lovely Lalana, Yelane Pomanti. Oh my lovely Lalana, Yelane Pomanti is, oh my lovely girl, why are you behaving like this? What did I do? Okay, and the later part of the song also has words like, "Ituvanti step, is it fit to take? Ituvanti step, is it fit to take? Sit a while here, let me convince you. Sit a while here, let me convince you. Oh my lovely Lalana." So is it fit to take a step like this? Sit a while here, let me convince you. It's all part of understandable and very easily reachable English language, and how a 17th and 18th century poet had an idea to mix these lyrics with Telugu and present it to the king, and the king also welcomed it, and it was danced in the royal courts subsequently. So this is the kind of multilingualism that I talk about. And when I mentioned this in one of my visits to University of California in Davis, when I did my Fulbright scholarship in 2015, there was this young person in class who said, "So, Sikil sir, does it mean that I can give you a set of English words and can you sing it for me?" And so I said, "Most gladly, I will sing it. Maybe I won't sing it in a concert yet, but I will definitely show you how that phrase can work in our ragas." So he gave me a nice poem, like starry, I stared starry-eyed, something like that. And I was happy to sing that in a raga that he didn't know. So not only did that boy remember the raga, and he also remembered that Carnatic music is something that can be cool, that can speak my language, that can speak my sensibility. And he started going. And then the next day he comes and asks, "Can I get a few links where you have sung these songs? Can you give me your YouTube links and things like that?" So I was very happy. So this is the way Carnatic music has to be propagated further. You need that gateway. You need that entry point to an art form like Carnatic music, and I think language or multilingualism is definitely one of those. So as a fun experiment, can I request, this is something new to me, it may go either way. So can I request someone from Spikmeke, Surat, to give me a Gujarati proverb, and I will try singing that in a raga that you probably don't know. And that will kind of make sense. It'll cement whatever I said in your minds. Anyone? Sare ma pada sada pamari sa sare ma pada This is a raga alapana, and I can't expect all of you to understand what I'm actually singing, because this is extempore, this is impromptu singing. But how do you make this relatable to an audience is by choosing lyrics that the audience knows. Hari no marag che shurano, hari no marag che shurano, hari no marag, hari no marag che shurano, hari no marag che shurano, hari no marag, hari no marag, hari hari no marag che shurano, Hari no marag che shura no Hari no marag che shura no Hari no marag ma pada sadara pa Hari no marag Sari ma pada sari mari sada da pada ma Hari no marag. So with this line in Gujarati, I've done Neraval, I've done Kalpanaswaram, both of which are traditional Carnatic music grammar that are prevalent in Carnatic music grammar. So through this Gujarati proverb, I'm able to communicate the language of Carnatic music. Shuddha Saveri Ragam is communicated, what is Raga Alapana is communicated, what is Neraval is communicated, and what is Kalpanaswaram, that also is communicated. So just see the effect of multilingualism in an art form. Let me quickly go to the next one. Snehaji, can you recite that once more, please? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. Did you hear me, Sneha Balani ji? Yeah.
The pronunciation is Mate Ma Bijabada Vagadana Va.
Mate Ma Bijabada Vagadana Va. Yeah. So I'm going to choose a ragam which is probably different in emotion than the previous one. So the Saveri or that pentatonic scale that I sang was, ragas give different emotions in different people. For me, Shuddha Saveri spells out a lot of happiness and brightness. This Mate Ma Bija Bada Vagadana Va, I'm going to choose a ragam which is more, I would say, melancholic, not in a sad way, but I need a contemplative ragam, because this is something that I need to tell myself. This a stature of a mother, nothing can match it. It's something that I should realize, and individuals should realize. So I think I take this as a proverb for myself, and I'll make it into a ragam that is quite deep within. For me, a ragam that comes to my mind right now is a very classical raga called Bhavapriya. Sare mana tadarana sanida pamagare sa dani sarega gama padani ni da pamagare Gamavadani Sadani Padama Pagamare Garesa. So Mate Ma Bija Badha Vagadana 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 Mate Ma. So the talam is a very Carnatic talam called Chatusra Atatalam, which goes like 1, 2, 3. Mate ma bija badha vagdana mate ma bija badha vagdana mate ma bija badha vagdana mate ma. So because of this beautiful proverb, now you have learned about one ragam of the countless ragas in Carnatic music called Bhavapriya. So that is hopefully the takeaway that I will expect for all of you. For myself, if I'm learning a new art form, I would love to take away things like this that are more appealing to my sensibility, to my language. I can see a lot more Gujarati proverbs. And Isha Singh has asked me to sing BTS Dynamite in a ragam. BTS Dynamite, So this sounds like an ad, I'm sorry. It's not actually a emotion-filled exposition of BTS Dynamite. So with this, we come to an end of the major part of my lecture, which is going to be on multilingualism, which was going to be on multilingualism. So now let me quickly touch upon the scientific aspects of Carnatic music, because I told you in the beginning that Carnatic music, it survives on two fundamental principles, Indian classical music for that matter, which are the concepts of raga and tala, melody and rhythm. Some people may argue that raga, tala cannot be translated as melody and rhythm. I agree, but for the sake of simple translation, for the sake of understanding, let's think of raga as a melodic framework and tala as a time-bound framework. So Carnatic music has these two concepts as its pillars. Anything that you can imagine in the world of Carnatic music has to happen around these pillars. So these pillars are like the basic edifices that upon which a concrete structure can be constructed upon. So if the fundamental, the base, the foundations are not strong, then the building that you construct on top of that, it's going to crash any day. So all of us as students, we ensure that we make ourselves strong and unshakable in the foundations. So how do we do that? Is we learn the principles of Carnatic music, the foundational principles of Carnatic music, as a scientific technique. That people today may call Carnatic music, Indian classical music, as something that is mind-driven, and it's meditative, it's divine, it's hugely subjective, and all these things. It is everything that what I just said, but the underlying principle, how you actually learn Carnatic music, if you actually carefully observe those things, there is quite a lot of scientific principles, scientific techniques that you use. Because swaras on one hand, that make up melodies, that make up ragas, they are all nothing but frequencies. So in Carnatic music, you have different frequencies. I'll just give you a quick run through of the frequencies that are possible in Indian classical music. Sa re re sa re sa re ga 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 ma ma pa da 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 ni ni sa. So these are the different swaras that help you go up and similarly come down. So a raga is nothing but an ascent and a descent of two sets of swaras in a prescribed format, in a prescribed structure. So ragas, if you carefully see, they are nothing but different frequencies of tones. If somebody gives me that frequency, I will immediately go to da. Oh, that is da. And somebody, if I listen to a train which is passing by with a horn that sounds like, my mind will immediately go to ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. So everywhere around you, you have these different frequency variations, tonal variations that you can observe. So everything can be translated into a swara, provided you have a base swara or adhara shruti or adhara pitch that you have to relate to. So these are swaras on one hand. On the other hand, you have something called talas or time-bound. Now, when you take swaras again, they are 7. As you all know, there are sapta swaras, 7 swaras anywhere, whichever part of the world you go. And that's the reason I think language, it's not an obstacle for music. Music has no obstacle called language, or any obstacle for that matter. Because if I'm stranded in an island with another musician, say from South America, the interior tribal village of South America, assuming that he also is groomed in his own folk music, I will be able to communicate something or the other with him, because I have these foundations of 7 swaras, and we will somehow eventually meet in one of those swaras. So that is how music enriches your lives, because you realize that the language of swaras is universal. The frequency is universal. Everywhere you can tomorrow you can take a Justin Bieber song and you can translate that into swaras that you understand. So that is how relatable swaras are. So swaras give rise to scales, and scales again give rise to ragas. And today you have umpteen number of ragas in Indian classical music. So talking about Carnatic music, I would say there is a Melakarta chart, or the parent raga chart, which has a total of 72 different tonal variations, frequency variations, and thus there are 72 different ragas. And the study of these ragas is purely scientific. The ragas are based in two halves, 36 on one hand, 36 on the other hand, and the differentiating point is the fourth note, which is sa, re, ga, ma, the ma or the madhyama, the fourth note. If it is of the lower frequency, the ragas go into the first 36 of the 72. If that madhyamam is of the higher frequency, which is called the prati madhyamam, they go into the second 36. And these 36 are again subdivided into different chakras or different boxes or compartments. So each box or each chakra consists of 6 ragas. So you have 6 chakras in the first 36 and 6 more chakras in the next 36. So you have 12 chakras. So the Melakarta system is a study in science where you have 6 chakras consisting of 6 ragas, each different frequency, and the frequency keeps repeating itself in every chakra. So every raga, every 2 ragas, only one note, one frequency differs. So by that fashion, we have 72 ragas, 72 Melakarta, the parent ragas we have. And with these parent ragas, it's a matter of permutation and combination, which again is a scientific principle. You delete certain notes from those ragas, you can get another raga. You again add a few notes from that deleted note raga, you will get another raga. So from, if it's a simple exercise would be, take Kalyani, which is a universal raga, Yaman in North Indian classical music. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. If you take this ragam, this is a 7 note, sa re ga ma pa da ni, and usually we end the 7th note by singing the first note again in the upper octave. Sa. So now, what if I were to remove the second note, re? Sa ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga sa. It becomes a new raga. What if I were to remove both the second note, re, as well as the 6th note, dha? Sa ga ma pa ni sa sa ni pa ma ga sa. It's a pre-existing raga called Amritavarshi. So this is how many composers, many musicologists, and many people have come up with the ideas of parent ragas, ragas that are born out of the, child ragas, ragas that are born out of the parent ragas. So you have Melakarta, which are the parent ragas, and then you have the Janya or the child ragas, which are born from the parent ragas, which may or may not have all the swaras, all the 7 swaras. So this is a study in science. You know, you have frequency variations, you have number of swaras, and then you have this raga system. But where does science transition into art? I think it's because of the space that you have between every 2 swara. You know? So you have a couple of swaras. How do you define the space between the swaras? So that is where the artist has to take over, the art has to take over. The gamakas, you know, there is a very important concept called gamakas in Indian classical music that are nothing but the ornamentation between 2 swaras. Point A to point B, again I'm making a very scientific explanation to this gamaka, please bear with me. Point A to point B, consider point A is swara re and point B is swara ga. And there are different varieties of re and different varieties of ga. So for each variety, the movement from point A to point B will be different. So consider, just think I'm considering the highest frequency of re. Sa, re, that is point A. Re. Point B will be ga. So how do I sing sa, re, ga with gamakas? Sari Gari Sagari Sari. So now you find that point A to point B is not simple, it's not linear. You can go Sari. There are looping techniques that are adopted to go from Sa to B. Similarly, Pada Ni Da Pa Ma Pa Ma Ga Ma Da Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. So these are how gamakas transform the existence of swaras and make them ragas. So ragas are nothing but a simple set of 7 or how many ever swaras you have, interlinked by these intricate gamakas or ornamentations that actually leave a lot of scope for imagination for the practitioner. So the more you learn about Carnatic music, the more you experience these ornamentations, these gamakas, you find your own set of gamakas that are appealing to you. So some people may prefer to use few gamakas, or some people may prefer to use no gamakas in fast-paced sangatis. So that depends on the training that they have undergone. So this is how science starts getting into the art territory, and also with the science behind the swaras and the science behind the talas. Talas are nothing but pure mathematics, applied arithmetic. So you have the basic talas are called Suladi Sapta talas. Sapta means 7. So you have seven different angas, or you have 7 different talas, which are based on 6 hand gestures called the Shadangas. Shat angas. So 6 angas or hand gestures. So I think we will probably need a session for talas alone, because talas, in my opinion, is the most scientific part of Carnatic music, where you can actually have a lot of arithmetic, numerical progression, arithmetic progression, a lot of formulae, algebraic formulae to derive at the time interval, the time cycle. So as I said, in the Tala system, I'll just say this and you can ask your questions after that. In the Carnatic Tala system, you have the Shadangas, so the 6 angas basically, and through the Shadangas, you then go into this concept of Suladi Sapta talas, or 7 talas, and then you have 5 different paces with which you walk, with which you walk the talam. So the nadais, they are called nadais in Tamil. So 7 multiplied by 5, it gives 35, and from 35, again you have 5 different varieties of lagu. I'm sure I'm confusing you because you don't know these basic concepts as of yet, but I'm just trying to explain how much arithmetic plays an important role in the tala system. So you have a set of 108 talas on one hand, you have a set of 175 talas, and 175 is derived by 6 angas moving into 7 talas, and then 7 talas moving into 5 nadais, 7 into 5, 35, 35 going into 5 different varieties of resulting in 175. So while you're learning Carnatic music, there's a lot of these scientific principles that are taught to you, but the only difference is that we don't teach those things as science as such. Everything is part of Carnatic music, and only after you progress to a certain level, you look back and say, yeah, this was pretty much what I did in class, what I did in mathematics. The formula was intact when I applied it to Carnatic music as well. But the more you devote yourself to this wonderful interplay between raga and tala, raga being more infinite, more abstract, and tala being more finite and more time bound, the more you get this experience between the infinite and finite, you start evolving as an artist, because the major part of Indian classical music, just like gamakas is a major part, the other major part is manodharma, is improvisational singing. So the moment you start improvising, the moment you start thinking out of the box and thinking from your mind, from your heart, rather from your brain, that is where science turns into art, because they say science is all brain, art is all heart. So the beautiful mix between brain and heart is what results in Carnatic music being called today as a scientific art. So thank you so much. I'm probably ready for questions right now.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving this talk and enriching our knowledge. Now we are open to questions. So anyone who wants to ask anything can put it in the chat box. So, sir, starting with, we have the first question from Swastik, our volunteer only. Someone who has been privy to Indian classical music might know that there are 22 Shrutis, out of which 12 Swaras are there selected. How are Shrutis used in classical music, like Shrutis apart from the 12 Swaras?
Shruti is used according to each one's instrument, if they are an instrumentalist, or each one's voice, if they are a vocalist. So there are the different Shrutis that we have today. I can just show you that we use predominantly in concerts are C sharp. I just play it for you. I have a pitch pipe ready with me. So C, and you have C sharp, and then you have D, and then D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, and C. So basically there are 12 Shrutis as we use in Carnatic music today, and one chooses the Shruti according to the age first, because both boys and girls, we have the same Shruti when we start, when we are young, and then when boys, when they undergo that transformation of voice, we quickly move to a Shruti that is quite in the bass areas like C or D, or C sharp or D sharp, and then the girls, they stick with Shruti around G sharp and F and these. So it's purely based on each one's age and each one's preference and comfort. For instrumentalists, it's purely the Shruti. It's based on the kind of instrument that they are practicing with. So most of the instruments, they are tuned to one Shruti, and then they can play different ragas in that same Shruti. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So the next question is, we all have heard about the music therapy. So is it true that music has healing properties?
I think music as a healing power, it's completely mind driven. It differs from person to person. So for me, the kind of therapeutic value a music has, it may not be the same to another person sitting on the other end of the globe. So I would say that definitely music as a whole, it has this tranquil quality in it. And for some people, the tranquility may be necessary. For some people, stimulation may be necessary. Both purposes, I think music can be used in different measures. So in a concert, it's all about stimulation for me. In some parts, it really gets tranquil, and some parts it's always stimulating for me. But when I come home, I need to actually relax myself. I listen to a different kind of music. I don't listen to Carnatic music, because every time I listen to Carnatic music, my mind gets stimulated. And when I actually want something to put me to sleep and to ease me and to calm me, I go to other streams of music. So music as such, it has this transformative quality. If you want to feel stimulated from being tranquil, music can help. If you want to feel the other way around, music again can help. But that being said, I think there are many people, many scientists who actually are still trying to figure out how certain ragas can be applied to certain ailments. Certain ragas can help people overcome depression, can help people recuperate from a major surgery. And I know for a fact that one of my close friends, who is also a surgeon, who uses who uses pipe music in his operation theater and plays these instrumental ragas, so that he feels calm first of all, and the patient who is going into anesthesia, they also feel calm. So there are many different angles from which music can be seen as a therapy.
Yes, sir. The next question is, despite the relative greater freedom that Hindustani music offers or improvisation, why has Khyal music not shown greater multilingualism?
I don't think I'm the right person to talk about Khyal music, because I'm more rooted in Carnatic music. But I can actually translate that question into my experience. I can say that, yes, Carnatic music also, the Khyal, I would say that has a parallel in the Ragam Tanam Pallavi, that we have. We kind of explore an entire ragam the lyrics will be very few in that part of the concert, because other parts of the concert, they have a lot of lyrics, a lot of songs. But at Ragam Tanam Pallavi, we just choose one single line where we kind of expand it again and again, more and more from different time frames. So speaking through that angle, I would say that the languages that are chosen for that particular Ragam Tanam Pallavi format, it needs to be expanded more. I think there is a lot of scope for expansion over there, because now we see mainly again Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, not even that much of Kannada in that Ragam Tanam Pallavi. I think a great way forward is to take these multilinguistic proverbs that are prevalent all over India, because everyone loves advices, right? We love to hear good things. We love to hear advice that is given. We may not follow it, that's a different matter, but we like to sing about good things, good morally good things. So it's there in every language, every culture. So why don't we take those things and start interpreting them in our own music? That is a wonderful way forward, I feel.
Sir, as you mentioned earlier, that you can relate to the everyday sounds like that of a train to music. How can we also learn to do that?
That's very simple. See, it all comes only through exposed. You have to expose knowledge. The more you expose yourself to a body of work, then you are more trained. Your ear becomes tuned to a particular shruti. So maybe you can try doing this for the next 10 days. Listen to one raga, the same raga every day. Maybe take a raga like Shankarabharanam in Carnatic music, or the Bilawal Thaat in Hindustani music. Just keep on listening to that one particular rendition every day without fail for 15 minutes. The 11th day when you go out, the moment you hear the cuckoo cry, or the moment you hear a car horn, you will immediately relate to this particular swara from that Bilawal Thaat or from that Shankarabharanam. So this horn sounds like that swara. So that is how your mind becomes attuned to a ragam, to the frequencies that are there. So that's what we try to do in our lives as a student and as a performer, because we need to keep ourselves exposed. We need to keep ourselves acclimatized to these different swaras, to different talas, so that when we sing a song, when we are able to, for example, when this gentleman gave me this Harino Maragache Shurano, I don't get intimidated. Oh my God, this is a language that I don't understand. No, this is a language that can be very well understood through the prism of Carnatic music. So that's what I feel.
Sir, Ashutosh Sharma is asking, it is amazing how in spite of great distances in space and sometimes time, mankind has come up with the same melody structure, that is Saptaswaras, across the world. Could you please explain or guide me towards resources which can help me understand how or why such convergence happened?
See, the origin of the Saptaswaras, that's a very deep and vast topic, I would say. Because swaras are basically sounds, the early human being, the early man, Stone Age, and all these, when you go back to that civilization period, that era, you had only sounds as a form of communication, right? So people used to use sounds when they were angry, when they were fearful, when they were happy, and all these things. So that slowly got translated into ordered or structured sounds, and then languages started forming. And then you had Vedas, and when Vedas happened, the slokas were interpreted in different tones. So for example, Om Bhurbo Swaha, there are different tones to that intonation. When you chant Om Bhurbo Swaha, there are 3 different tones that are possible. Ta, 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 ta. I'm singing the modern version. Tam Bhurbo Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Darararariri Tararararararara Nisarisa Nisarisa. So these 3 tones are getting played, they are getting chanted when the Gayatri Mantram is recited. So that is part of the Vedic scriptures that you have. And then there are different Vedas which had different frequencies in which the slokas were narrated. So that gave rise to musical structures, musical swaras being formed. And then as time went by, I'm talking only about our music, as time went by, people started codifying or structuring these swaras into different frequencies. They started giving names to different frequencies, like we call Chaturshruti Rishabham, Shatruti Rishabham. You have Komal Dhaivat and Tivra Dhaivat, like Komal Madhyam, Tivra Madhyam, all these things. And it is fascinating, as you said, as the questioner has posed, that any part of the world, the melodic form, you can converge in this world of 7 swaras. So that the simple thread of tonal commonalities is the fundamental knowledge that you need to acquire in order to understand this convergence, I would say.
Thank you, sir, for such a great explanation. Our next question is from Panchamji. Does a lullaby induce sleep, or it just provided a sense of security to the listener?
Doesn't what?
Does a lullaby induce sleep, or it just provided a sense of security to the listener?
I think it does both, Panchamji, because once you have a sense of security, automatically your senses kind of, they are off guard, and only in that state of being off guard can you sleep. So I think lullaby, first of all, it kind of lowers your defenses and you feel calm. And for me, it can be a lullaby, it can be any other raga. So it just happens to be a state of mind that is induced through a music form. Yeah.
Sir, our next question is from Vivek Tonapi. He is just 11 years old and he's in grade 2 Carnatic music. And his question is, it is said that Rag Meghashyam, Ghanshyam is Hindustani music could bring rain. What was special about this Rag that brought rain?
Again, this is something that I've read, I've heard about. I really, I've not seen this happening in current circumstances, but I really, I don't know how to answer this question, but if you find a lot of texts that explain this phenomenon, you know, how, for example, we have Muthuswami Dikshidhar, who was a celebrated composer from the 18th century. He is said to have brought rains by his musical works. And he is said to have cured a person who had a terminal illness through his musical works. So I think it's all something to do with the manifestation of the swaras into the transcendental world. You know, the swaras can actually speak a very universal and multi-universal language sometimes. And when that couples with these traveling through dimensions and stuff like that, these miracles happen. And I'm sure everything has its own rational explanation behind it.
Yes, sir. We have our last question from Mitanshu. He's asking, for learning any art form or anything, we need the guidance of Guru. However, it may not be possible every time to be physically present before a Guru. What one should do then in order to learn that art form? For example, music. Can books be reliable?
Of course, of course. If you have a guru, nothing like it. And even if you have a guru, it's good to read books. So there are umpteen number of books today, even online. You can purchase books. You can subscribe to a portal which carries a lot of journals and carries a lot of articles on music. I have learned most of my theory about music only through books. So I'm still learning it. So because in I don't know about North India, but in South India, at least the generation that I grew up in, the classes were all practical. You know, we didn't have separate classes with our gurus where my guru sat and explained the 7 swaras, what was the evolution of 7 swaras and how the 7 swaras are formed, how they form ragas, and nothing of that sort. The first class, the very first class that went, I remember we started on a song. And then we kind of work backwards and forwards. And so it's all about a trust that the gurus have in us, that if this boy or girl is talented or dedicated enough, they will find their own sources in order to enrich their knowledge. And there is no better teacher than experience, I would say. So my experience with books, my experience with people around me, they need not be from the music field, from any place in general. That has taught me so much about music itself. How to actually keep working within yourself, within your own music, and how that transforms into something that is external as well. So Yeah, books are essential for any art form. Yeah.
Sorry, due to time constraints, we can't have more questions. But we really enjoyed your session, sir. All the insight about how fluid music is and how some ragas can be sung in different languages and yet imbibe different feelings was indeed very mesmerizing. Thanks a lot, sir, for sharing your thoughts with us. We really hope that we get to witness your support always like this. On behalf of entire team of SpecMackey, I thank you for being a part of this talk session. We are indeed very honored to have you among us today. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much, Kiran Sethi. It's again a pleasure to see you. Thank you everyone for providing the nice words in Gujarati, and make sure you send me those words as an email as well. I'll try to use it in my future concepts very soon.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank our chief guest, Ms. Kinjal Gajera ma'am, who accepted our invitation and gave their valuable time for us. Thank you so much, ma'am. Further, I would like to thank all the students and the participants for participating and cooperating with us. I would like to thank our senior SpecMackey volunteers for mentoring us as well, and Mrs. Kruti Mehta, coordinator of Surat chapter, for her support. Lastly, I would like to thank our supporters, SRF. I would also like to request all of you to spare some time and give us feedback in the feedback form which has been uploaded in the chat section and also will be mailed to everyone. For those who missed some parts, may check your YouTube channel, SpecMackey SVNIT, where we will be uploading the recorded talk session. Thank you.